Well, the craziness had to end at some point. The Russian Grand Prix, in comparison to the other Grand Prix we've had recently, was kind of dull. Not a great deal happened. The circuit has always been very Mercedes dominant anyway, so to see kind of Mercedes dominance there wasn't so much of a shock. I'm not surprised it wasn't the most exciting race either, because it's not really a track or circuit that offers a lot of overtaking opportunities or is in fact very interesting. I don't personally really like the Sochi Autodrome very much. It's very street circuit-esque. It's probably the closest permanent circuit to a street circuit on the calendar. So it does have a very street circuit kind of race mentality, kind of race vibe to it, which does normally mean that qualifying counts for a lot, and there isn't much that can be done in the race. However, we're still coming in, we're still going to talk about it, because there's a few things to come out, Formula 1 based and potentially Formula 1 future based, that I want to talk to you about today. Firstly, let's talk about Hamilton's penalty. I don't know what possessed him or the team to think that where he stopped to do his practice starts was a good idea. I don't quite understand how the assumption came about that Hamilton didn't have to do his practice start where literally everybody else was, just because there was a bit too much rubber down there. Everybody suffers the same. Everybody has to do the practice start in the same place, which is why there's a lot of rubber down there. But I just don't really know how this even happened in the first place. To me, it was quite cut dry. If you look at the shots that you were shown of Hamilton at the end of the pit lane, there is a blue marking on the ground just behind him on the pit exit. He is to the, from his point of view, he's to the right of that. From our point of view, he's to the left of that, which means he is technically in the fast lane. That is pit exit. It is illegal to stop your car in fast lane unless you obviously don't have a choice. So therein, he was banged to rights off the bat. It's also a very dangerous place to stop because pit exit at Sochi is a blind right-hander. So those cars coming out of the pit lane, having done their practice start, now really pumping up to racing speed, accelerating as they go, are not expecting to see a stopped car on their right. So it's a very dangerous place to stop. I don't really know why it was done. Do I think the penalty should have been given within the race? That's debatable. I mean, obviously it kind of shook things up a little bit, but it's Sochi, so it was never going to shake it up so much. But whether he should have maybe been handed a penalty post-race, or grid drop for the next race or something. At the end of the day, it was dangerous and it was illegal where he stopped the car to do his race starts. So penalty definitely should have been given. When that penalty was given is conjecture. It's up for debate. It kind of mixed up the race, but really not that much because he was one of the first to stop, because he was on the soft tyre to start, not the medium. He basically jumped most of the grid in the stops anyway and was net third by the time he'd done his stop and had his penalty. So yes, it lost in the win, but no, I don't really think it affected the race all that much anyway. His comments after the race though, Hamilton's comments after the race, were completely ridiculous. To say that the FIA or whomever are trying to stop him. Firstly, trying to stop him what? He's verging on becoming the most successful racing driver of all times in history of Formula 1. He's already pretty much broken every record bar 2. He holds them all. If they were trying to stop him, surely they would have done so prior to this point where he's basically nearly taken the lot. Obviously it was a heat of the moment comment. And you know, adrenaline's still pumping. Drivers don't normally say the sensiblest things if they've had a bad race straight after getting out of a car. Usually their PR team are like, right, let's take 5, come and sit down, have a glass of water, chill out for a moment before we send you to the wolves. So yes, probably a heat of the moment comment. The fact that it's now the 30th of September when I'm recording this and he still hasn't come out and gone, my bad, probably shouldn't have said that. You'd have thought they would have done something like that, because it does sound a bit silly to say that you are nearly the most successful driver in the history of the sport and yet they're trying to sabotage you. I also think it was a stupid comment to make. But moving on to the race, which definitely wasn't the most exciting race, especially in comparison to the 2 races we just had, Tuscany and Monza, which basically threw anything and everything it could at everybody. First incident we had was going through turn 2, that pesky little chicane that the drivers had to go through had they run wide at turn 2. Sainz basically messed it up. There's no better or cleaner way to say it. you can see as he's going from the onboard, you can see the angle the car is going into that chicane. It's inevitable. He's aiming too far towards that wall rather than the gap. Obviously, we know it's there. Reason it happened, he tried to take way too much speed going through that corner because he tried to save as many positions as possible. Very, very lucky nobody collected that car. Vettel was very close to collecting signs yet again, as they did in Tuscany at the start of the race. But luckily, no one did collect the McLaren. And unfortunately, that was his race over. Do I think it would have been a good race for him anyway? Probably not. It wasn't really a circuit that suited the McLaren. It hadn't really shown any colours. And looking at where Norris ended, it wasn't really the best circuit for the car anyway, so I don't think the team missed out too much. Obviously, the midfield fight in the Constructors' Championship is very, very close. I think it's only about 6 points splitting third from sixth. So it's really, really close now. The midfield battle is going to go all the way to Abu Dhabi, and it's definitely the one that's interesting to watch because it's the one where there's actually competition and a fight. Guess we got to be excited about a midfield battle instead, as we probably will be, until they decide to realise it's an engine formula, and the only way you're really going to change the competitive order and break Mercedes' dominance is to do something about that engine regulations. The Stroll-Leclerc incident that happened a few corners after that, big shame for Stroll to be tagged out like that, but in all honesty, just a racing incident. I think the decision for no further action was correct. Leclerc wasn't squeezing Stroll. I think Stroll goes a little wide from memory, can't quite remember, so I might be wrong there, so apologies if I am. But yeah, I don't think there was any further action needed. It is just one of those incidents when you have a lot of cars close together at the same time, but Leclerc left him plenty of room. There was no squeezing. It was just contact. It happens. It's racing, unfortunately. It was quite processional. It wasn't the most interesting. It wasn't the most entertaining. And like I say, I'm not surprised by that. The circuit just doesn't yield that kind of performance. It doesn't yield wheel-to-wheel racing. It hasn't since it came onto the calendar in 2014. This has never been won by anyone but a Mercedes car or anyone in a Mercedes car, so it's a Mercedes circuit. Good job by Red Bull and Verstappen to split the Mercedes, but that was almost kind of helped by the fact that Hamilton had those 2 5-second penalties. So yes, good job from Red Bull, but also coincidence of circumstance, I think, in the end there. And I think Red Bull will happily admit that they did a very good job. You know, the gap that they held enough of a gap to retain that. Hamilton couldn't catch them on the tyres because he was having to tyre manage because he believes he pitted too early. That's also up for debate. I don't know. I think he had to, in my opinion, with the penalties he had, Hamilton had to be one of the first to pit because otherwise he had lost too much time on the field and not been able to recover the places as he did as everybody else pit. So I kind of feel like because he had that penalty and because he was on the different tyre strategy, that's kind of why he had to pit when he did. Whether or not the tyre strategy would have really affected him, I don't think it would have too much, but we'll never know because obviously he had that 10-second penalty addition. So that's kind of wrapping up thoughts on the race. Next race is at the Nürburgring. I'm super excited for that to be back on the calendar. Not sure how much good racing that will yield. It's not a very long straight circuit. It's quite cornery. That's not a word, but go with me. Quite twisty, turny, lots of chicanes and hairpins. So not too many long straights, which means the engine advantage shouldn't be too strong. Might be a good race for Renault and McLaren. I think are the ones I would say look out for because they should be strong at something like that. Not too high on engine dependency, but a really good package they do have when engine is not so much of a factor. They were saying that McLaren was quite good at Monza, so maybe the Renault engine is getting better. Who knows? Let's talk about the F1 future though. There's something I do have to say before we get too far into this off the back of my Mick Schumacher video that if you haven't seen, click on the card. That'll be there for you to go see, where I discuss whether or not Schumacher should go into Formula One next year. I just have to reiterate, because I've had a couple of comments saying you're just rooting for Callum Ilott, this is just an Ilott support video. Absolutely not. That was not my intention with that video at all, and I apologize if it came across that way. My entire intention with that was just saying that if Ilott won the F2 championship and Schumacher then didn't, and there was only one F1 seat available and Schumacher got the seat over Ilott, I just was trying to say that that, in my opinion, would not be fair because the best driver in F2 should get the seat if there's only one. However, it does appear like that entire video becomes a moot point because it looks like there are potentially 2 Ferrari young driver seats in Formula One next year. So we're looking at Haas now as well as Alfa Romeo. as I said in that video, any of those teams would be silly to put 2 rookies in. So it's very, very likely they'll go for an experienced driver and a rookie driver. Now, both Haas drivers are out of contract. Obviously, Sergio Perez is also no longer have a seat and looking for one for next year. I think we're all confident in saying that Alfa Romeo is locked in. That's most definitely going to be Kimi Räikkönen and Mick Schumacher at the helm of those cars in 2021, which is almost iterated by the fact that at the Nürburgring, Mick Schumacher has an FP1 appearance with Alfa Romeo. However, this is where the interesting thing comes in, because again, for an FP1 appearance at the Nürburgring, Callum Ilott has a drive with Haas. It looks like Haas might be doing a similar thing to Alfa Romeo next year. Remember, both are affiliated with Ferrari in using their engines. So if Haas does do that, it looks like one of their seats may be taken by Callum Ilott, which will be the rookie in the team, and then they'll have either Grosjean, Magnussen, or Perez, maybe Hülkenberg, but I haven't really heard any rumors about that in that second seat. Rumor on at the moment is Sergio Perez, because he brings money. And that is a whole nother video I will do, because it's something I feel quite strongly about, and I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about money in Formula One, especially in the driver market. But I think there's enough there to talk for a whole new video. So I will keep an eye out for that, because that will be out at some point. So there are my predictions also for 2021. For the last few seats we have, Alfa Romeo will be Räikkönen and Schumacher, Haas will be Perez and Ilott. You heard it here first. Well, you didn't, because a lot of people have been saying it, but I said it here first. Interesting things to come out of that though are the young drivers. We will have 2 of those drivers in Formula One seats at the Nürburgring to see what they can bring to the field. I'm pretty confident it's pretty much just them getting ready for the seats they'll have next year, but we'll hopefully find out in due course. I'm not surprised Mick's got a Nürburgring drive. That does make a lot of sense, especially with F2 not being there. The other young driver that looks like they may have a seat is Yuki Tsunoda, who is affiliated with Honda and Red Bull. Now, it's not surprising that Honda have probably got a clause in their contract with Red Bull that Red Bull assist their young drivers and try and get them into Formula One. Honda's obviously going to be very, very keen to get a Japanese driver into a Formula One car, because we haven't had a Japanese driver for a very long time, and they'll want that representation in the field. What this does look like is that Kvyat is out. I'm not gonna lie, I've thought that Kvyat was just kind of a placeholder for Red Bull for a while. Having been promoted and demoted from Red Bull in the past and not kind of doing a Gasly and shining again once he'd been demoted, I think Red Bull have him there as a more convenience. They know he's an okay driver, they know he'll score points, they know he'll drive the car well, but he's never going to progress back through with that program. So I do think as well that Tsunoda will be in AlphaTauri next year and Kvyat will be out. I do actually think that finalizes the 2021 grid. I was going to do a whole video on that, but I guess I've just kind of summed it up. But yeah, do let me know your thoughts on the Russian Grand Prix, what you think of the Sochi Autodrome, whether you like it, dislike it like me, whether you think it should even be on the calendar anymore. Just let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I love reading them and I love discussing this with you as always. But for now, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It's been an absolute blast as always. If you enjoyed this video, go show that like button some Formula One love. And if you want to support the channel, go hit subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss next time I upload a video. Stay awesome, and I will see you all in the next video! How many of you guys hate it when I change that little bit in my outro?